Hello there. Welcome to ScottyTV. I am Scotty. You're not. I know it's been a while. I promised there would be more of these. What happened was, I was planning on doing, after I did Saved by the Bell, the new class, I decided, okay, I'm going to do a retrospective. I'm going to talk about the Seinfeld curse. I did the first two shows that weren't that bad, and then I got to watching Ellie, which was insufferable, and I couldn't do it. And so I kept pushing it, and I'm like, I have to do something. So I announced that that was no longer happening. It would eventually I'm going to have to push through it. But I was going to do a video for ScottyTV on the interconnected Nickelodeon universe. Well, then, as I was looking up stuff, that became a little too complicated with all the shows that were connected. So I said, I'm going to do each show separately. Well, I'm not quite ready to jump into that, but I said to myself, now I have technically 2 more movies to do before I can do the sequel-a-thon, but I can do them later next week. There's Smokey and the Bandit and Friday are the 2 I have to do. Because I was sitting there trying to think of something to watch on YouTube, and then I saw this sitting on the shelf over there. I just started talking about it. I think I rambled on for 20 minutes. I'm like, I could just do this video. Talking about it. So I'm going to do a ScottyTV on that 70s show. In case you didn't know what you clicked on. But yes, that 70s show premiered in 1998 and was about the goings-on of a group of teenagers in the 1970s. And I think that it suffers from the same problems that most that shows with a long run do, and that's the longevity of the show outlasting the concept. Smallville is a great example of this, because its concept was, hey, we're going to focus on young Clark Kent before he became Superman. The show lasted 10 seasons, and by season 8, he was Superman. Unofficially. He was in Metropolis, working for the Daily Planet, saving people, but he had no suit. Well, not a Superman suit, no cape. And he couldn't fly. But he was basically Superman without all the official stuff. Because they couldn't do that. Because that was in the contract. So, yeah. The show outlasted its premise. And with this, the issue was, they decided to start in 1976. The show ran 8 seasons. Which means by the time it got done, if they went 1 year a season, 6, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83. It'd be an end 1983-ish, 84-ish, give or take. By the time the show ended, and you can call it that 70s show. So, multiple years, or multiple seasons took place in 1 year. Which could work, but for most of the run, there was a Christmas episode every season. But sometimes 2 seasons would be 1 year, but they would still have Christmas episodes. It's very weird. It's very weird that they wanted to do Christmas episodes, but they couldn't. There's also Halloween episodes too, but beyond that, excuse me, I just ate lunch. I'm sorry. Beyond that, also the cast started to outgrow. By the time you get to season 5, maybe 4 or 5, you can tell that they're getting dangerously close to their mid to late 20s. All except for Mila Kunis, who was actually underage when she applied for the role. And she lied about her age to get the role. But they're all getting, Ashton Kutcher, at some point, he cuts his hair in season 7. At one point, he has a mustache. And he's supposed to be just graduated out of high school. And he's becoming a cop in season 5 or 6. And it's very obvious that these when Fez first shows up in season 1, they have him dressed all 70s, his hair's all combed over and stuff. Throughout the series, he changes. By the time we get to season 8, they look like they're mid to late 20s, and they're just cosplaying as teenagers. Uma Valderrama is wearing tight shirts. He's muscled out, trying to play Fez, whose main character is that he could not get laid. But because of the way that Wilmer Valderrama changed his look, he's now a ladies' man in season 8, which we'll get into season 8, but then there are other changes, and especially when Laura Prepon changes her hair color in season 7, that also changes how she looks, and she looks older, and as the seasons go on, it's very obvious Topher Grace is wearing a wig, and Danny Masterson at one point starts having a beard, mustache. It's very weird. And they just start to age out of their roles, but they keep going because multiple seasons in 1 year. And so they're technically 18, 19, maybe 20. The characters are, but they're in their mid to late 20s by the time the show ends, and that's also something, you know. So let's talk about the characters first, all right? The show takes place in the fictional Point Place, Wisconsin in the 1970s, okay? Our main character is Eric Foreman, played by Topher Grace. He's the nerdy main character type. He gets in trouble, but he's also the most innocent of the group, I think. I mean, you can say that Fez at first was like that, but as the show goes on, that changes. Eric is the clean-cut main character who just wants to live through life's stuff. He has a crush on the neighbor girl, Donna, and he has 2 best friends, you know, and he's just he wants to live life. So the first episode really is about him going up to get beers for everyone, which they do, which he does. Yeah. As that works. And there's other shenanigans they get into throughout the series. But he's the main focus character, and he lasts throughout the majority of the series until the end of season 7, where Topher Grace wanted to leave the show, focus on making movies. So he left and was replaced by the character of Randy, which we'll get to later. But that's when the show kind of tanks, because the show is about Eric Foreman, and when that's gone, it becomes about everyone else. But there's another character that the show could be equally about, and that is Stephen Hyde, played by Danny Masterson. And I know that talking about Danny Masterson is a little taboo nowadays with all the allegations, and I guess convictions now. I guess he's waiting for a sentencing. He's going to go to jail, so paying for what he did. But he plays Stephen Hyde, and besides Eric, I think he gets the most character development of a male character, I guess, throughout the series. He comes from a broken home. He has a mom who's played by Katie Segal. And then he has deadbeat dads, because you have Robert Hayes, who plays his first dad, Bud. He's not the dad. I think there's one other guy that might be his dad, but then that's not it. And it turns out it's Tim Reed, who's African American, playing his dad, and they don't have a joke. Well, yeah, don't you see? That's why I got my afro. Last time I checked, your hair doesn't naturally have an afro. Don't you have to? Because they make a thing with Bob at the beginning where he got it permanent so his hair was curly. Don't you have to do it so that it froze up like that? I know you can have curly hair, but I don't think... I'm no expert. But yeah, like I said, he gets the most character development. He goes from not having really a steady love interest, dating every girl, to having Jackie as a love interest in like season 4, 5, 6, whatever, and 7, maybe 5, 6, and 7, whatever. And then at the end of season 7, he and Jackie break up. He gets married to a stripper, and then that doesn't go anywhere because the producers realized, the showrunners realized it wasn't working, so they just got rid of that. And he doesn't do anything relationship-wise after that, because Jackie's going after someone else now because they had that. So Jackie was going after Fez, and so now Hyde's just sort of there. Then you have Donna. I think these 3 characters are the 3 main ones that really have a thing. There was a thing early on in season 1 where Hyde also had a thing for Donna, but after season 1, it's not really mentioned again. I don't think there's anything in season 2. He's moved on by this point, so he's not really going after. I think it even partway through season 1 he stops, because it just doesn't work. There's one episode where Eric and Donna go on a date in season 1. Hyde's going to confess his love to her, but she's drunk because she had Long Island iced tea. After that episode, I don't think it's ever brought up again. But Donna is the girl next door. She's the love interest for Eric. She's played by Laura Prepon, and she's the the big, tall, redhead character, and she's great. And I think that as a love interest for Eric, it works. Her and Eric's relationship hit several bumps. In season 5, they decide they're going to go to college by the end of season 5. And then Red has a heart attack. That's Eric's dad, if you don't know. So they end up staying in Point Place. And then they're going to get married. And by the end of season 6, Eric takes off and they don't get married. And it just never comes back again. They get back together. And then Eric leaves for Africa. That's what the character's excuse was. And then they break up a few episodes into season 8. And she starts dating Randy, which pissed off a lot of people. I'm not pissed off, but I don't get it. Well, she just broke up with Eric, and now she's going on with Randy, which kind of solidified that he was just an Eric replacement and more than just taking his character slot. And so we also have, she's dealing with other things as well, especially her parents' relationship, Bob and Midge, played by Don Stark and Tanya Roberts, respectively. They are constantly arguing. It's maybe not in season 1 much, but like season 2, maybe towards the end of season 1, I don't know. But they're arguing constantly, which ends up with Midge leaving. And then Bob ends up dating several other one, Joanne, whose actress I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sorry, I didn't look it up. No offense. Not a big fan of her. And then she starts dating Jackie's mom, Pam. There's a story with Jackie. Jackie, played by Jackie Burkhart, played by Mila Kunis. Her dad goes to jail, I think, season 2 or 3, one of the two, and he's never seen again. He's seen a couple of times in season 1, but then he goes to jail, he's never seen again. And then Jackie's mom, I don't think it's ever, maybe she's seen once, but then they recast her with Brooke Shields. I don't know. But I think there's one scene in like a dream sequence or whatever, a loose thing where they're talking like their parents or something. I don't know, where they show Jackie's dead. But her mom comes in, she starts dating Bob, and then halfway through season 6, Midge comes back, and they kind of go back and forth, and Bob ends up getting back with Midge, and then Midge leaves again. So I don't know where that. There's a thing with relationships in this show. They can't really get them right, except for one relationship: Kitty and Red, Eric's parents, Kitty and Red Foreman. They have one of the most healthy sexual relationships that you could ever see in a sitcom. And they're an older couple, too. They were in their 50s, at least, at this point. And they're constantly making references to running up the stairs, making little, innuendos and running up the stairs. And, yeah, it's actually nice to see that in a sitcom. But there also are opposites in a way, where Red babies Lori. Lori, played by Lisa Robin Kelly, is the oldest child, the Foreman's daughter. He babies her, but comes down hard on Eric. And opposite to that, Red babies Eric, but comes down hard on Lori because she knows what Lori is like, but she knows that Red babies her, so she can't really do anything about it. And I think it's a vice versa thing there too. But Eric, unlike Lori, is not a troublemaker like Lori is. She sleeps with a professor, she gets kicked out of college, all that stuff. She becomes a regular character in seasons 2, 3, and maybe 4. But, and she goes away, and she comes back in season 5, recast because the actress wasn't able to come back, and she marries Fez for a one-off, so he can stay in America, even though he had a green card. I don't remember exactly what happened there, but let's talk about Kelso a little more. Kelso is the dumbass character. Ashton Kutcher is great at playing these roles, and he demonstrates it over and over again. Even when he went on 2.5 Men, he was still sort of a smarter Kelso, which I know is kind of an oxymoron, but it worked for that. But the character is so dumb he has to wear a helmet sometimes. And his relationship with Jackie is kind of like a Ross and Rachel thing for me. I think I explained this when I reviewed the finale of Friends, where it's so much will they, won't they, that by the time they don't end up together, at least on that 70s show, but I just want it to end. But there's so much will they, won't they, early part of this, and then they finally break up, and then Jackie gets with Hyde, and their relationship is more of Hyde's one of those guys that doesn't show emotion, but he does care about her. You know? And, you know, all that. Kelso does have other love interests. Pam Macy is a recurring one that's mentioned. And then there's Jessica Simpson in a couple episodes of season 4 or 5. You know, but he doesn't have big love interests outside Jackie. In fact, they sort of hint at the end of season 7 that they're going to get back together, but they don't. Ashton Kutcher also left a few episodes into season 8, so. Yeah. Let's get to my favorite character of the show, Fez. Short for Foreign Exchange Student, which people have misconstrued to being spelled F-E-S. No, it's still F-E-Z. It just stands for Foreign Exchange Student because his real name is too big to announce. His running joke is that he's from, we never know where he's from. He's from an island or a place that every time he brings it up, there's a noise that cancels out so we don't hear where he's from. There's a joke towards the end of the series where someone from his country comes to visit him, and it's Justin Long doing a British with a British accent, so it really confuses people. And even Umar Rama said he kept changing up the accent that he does so that people would never catch on to the dialect, so it would be different. And it works. It works. And Fez is one of my favorite characters. He has some development. Did I see something fly in my face? Some development where he goes from being this guy who just wants to get laid, and then he has 2 girlfriends throughout this series, Nina and Big Rhonda. They're not permanent ones. And then last season 8, he's a ladies' man, like I said. Then he has like a small little arc where he ends up with Jackie. And a lot of people have complained, like, oh, it doesn't make any sense. This comes out of nowhere. But if you pay attention, I think Fez has always had feelings for Jackie. There's even one point he kisses her in a movie theater. Well, she's still with Kelso. So, yeah, there was always something there, but it does feel like they just like, okay, we gotta have someone come together. So they get together, and then they do bring Topher Grace back, and they sort of get together. Spoiler alert, they are together because that 90s show came out about their daughter, so, you know. But Fez is great. One of my favorite characters. And then you have Leo, who is played by Tommy Chong, and is just Tommy Chong. I don't know if he's even acting. It's just Tommy Chong. He could just be high off his ass most of the time, but it's one of my favorite characters on the show. He's sort of a side character, sort of a father figure, mentor to Hyde. He works with him at the photo hut, and then at the record store when his dad shows up. And one thing that I want to mention is that they introduce his dad, played by Tim Reed, and then he's got a sister, played by Megan Iwanok. Sorry if I mispronounced that. And they are throughout season 7, and then when season 8 happens, they just sort of drop them out. The record store is still there. I think maybe WE shows up once in that season, but other than that, I don't think you've seen again. Speaking of season 8, okay, so before we get into season 8, though, I want to talk about recurring characters that didn't happen. Like during season 1, there's an episode called Eric's Buddy, where they introduced the character of Buddy, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He's a gay character, and he was supposed to be a recurring character, but after the first episode he appeared in, he never appeared again. Likewise, there was also 2 other female characters. One of them played by Lindsay Sloan, who was supposed to be a love interest for Fez. She appears for a couple episodes and then disappears again. I don't know. There's another recurring character played by Jim Gaffigan, who is there for a few episodes during season like 4 and 5 or so, maybe 6. I think his name is Mitch. And then he's gone. Mitch Hedberg also has a recurring role as well as the guy who runs the hub. And he has one of my favorite lines in this series. Look, I did not lose a leg in Vietnam to serve French fries to teenagers. Frank, you have both your legs. Like I said, I did not lose a leg in Vietnam. I like that joke. But then there's Charlie. Charlie was introduced in season 7 as sort of another Eric because Topher Grace was leaving. So he was supposed to be Eric's replacement for season 8. However, during the interim between seasons, the actor, whose name I can't remember, I was going to look it up, I forgot, got a role on another sitcom for Fox. So he could not come back, so they hired Josh Myers to play Randy. And originally, supposedly, he was going to be just Eric. He's going to play Eric. And they were, but then it's like, no, just have him be his own character. Even though they just had him come in and be Eric anyway, like, he was dating Donna. He was hanging out with the friends after making one appearance. He was working at Hyde's record shop. After one appearance, he was hanging out with them all the time. But yeah, and I don't mind Randy. Don't shoot at me. I don't mind him. I think he might be funny. I think he's funny. I think he's pretty funny. He's not that bad of a character to me. I think the biggest problem with people, why he's so hated, is because she starts dating Donna. And that might be my issue too, is that it doesn't make sense for Donna to start dating him after her and Eric just broke up, a relationship that spanned from like the end of season 1 all the way, hit some bumps on the way, but all the way through season 7, and then he breaks up with her off screen and she just gets with Randy. That to me is lazy writing, so that we have one couple at least, because you broke up Jackie and Hyde, so now you need one couple on the show. Broke up Jackie and Hyde, and you're not getting Fez and Jackie together till the finale, so yeah. There's also a lot of trials and tribulations. Like at one point, Red loses his job, and he gets a new job. He works at the Quick Mart, whatever it's called. Hires Kelso and Eric. I think of the name. And then he ends up working for another place. It's like a factory or something, right? I don't know, but. Also, there is a point where Eric and Donna break up and she's dating Kelso's brother, Casey Kelso, played by Owen Wilson's brother, Luke Wilson. So I did that. I did it on purpose. I didn't mess up. I just wanted to fuck with you. Anyway, yeah, and he's one of those things where he's the older brother, and then later in season 7 he comes back because Eric needs to pass his phys ed test. So he has to go through that. And the more I talk about it, I think iCarly copied that. Because Carly needs to pass her phys ed test when she goes to her unit. Because she didn't officially graduate. She had to pass the phys ed test. And it's Shane, played by the guy from James from Big Time Rush, who was on the show. And she and Sam fought over him back in like season 2 of the original show. But yeah, in the latest iCarly. I want to talk about the new iCarly, but I got to talk about the old iCarly first. So, we'll get to that. But, yeah. So, Casey Kelso, again, he's one of those characters that shows up and is used and then just disappears. And then comes back in season 7 for a couple episodes and then disappears. One of my favorite facts about when the episode that he comes back in is they go to a strip club and Deborah Jo Rupp, who plays Kitty, is doing this dance. And, like, behind the scenes thing is she kept going. She didn't know when to stop, and she was just doing stuff, and she just kept going. To a point, there is a blooper where she just keeps going, and she just keeps doing it, and the stripper just keeps dancing. And then you see the 3 actors. You see Laura Prepon, Mila Kunis, and Luke Wilson all just sort of put their head down. Like, Laura Prepon and Mila Kunis are just... they've lost it at this point. They have no composure. And Luke Wilson kind of just puts his head down because he's a subtle dude, I guess. But she just keeps going. And she's like, they never yelled cut. I just kept going because they never yelled cut. And it's one of my favorite behind the scenes moments. But yeah, the show ended. I think the way they ended the show was great. The last day of the 70s, New Year's Eve, 1979. Great idea. And then... because it's the end of the 70s, so of course that's going to go away. It's going to end, right? And so can't call it that 70s show anymore. It's got to end on the last day of the 70s. It makes a lot of sense. Everyone that's important comes back. Randy makes one small little appearance at the beginning of the episode and is never seen again. And because they broke up at this point. And then Eric's coming back. So Donna, then there's a running thing where every time she wants to go to college, something happens. And now Eric's coming back. And it's implied in that 90s show, which I'll touch on a little bit, that she did, because they don't live in Point Place, so I'm assuming, you can assume, that she did finally leave and go to college. Maybe they both did. Maybe he didn't return to Africa. I don't know. Kelso does get a job with Playboy at some point. And at one point he does, I forgot about Brooke. He does have a daughter named Betsy, who, strange enough, is not mentioned at all in that 90s show. Yet. They could bring in the recurring her as a recurring character this next season. She would be older than that. She'd be at least 5 to 10 years older than Jay. I don't know. She would have been born in 1978, right? Depending on where season 6 of the show took place. But I don't know. But yeah. Before I end this, there were 2 spin-offs, right? The first of which was that 80s show, which unfortunately came out during the run of this show. And I figured if you're going to do that 80s show, you should do it after that 70s show ends, and then kind of work in some characters. Like, you could do it, that 80s show where Kelso goes off to do something else in the 80s. You know, he's in another city, he's doing stuff, that sort of thing. But because all of the characters we know and love are still in that 70s show, you can't really do that. So instead we follow a completely different character named Corey, played by Glenn Howerton, who is supposedly Eric Foreman's cousin in a different suburb in the middle of the 80s. And I think it's like 1985 or so, depending on the close. The biggest thing about this is that Kyler Leigh, you may know from 9/13 movie or Supergirl, she has a role on this as the love interest. And I don't know, it lasted 1 season, it tanked. I've been watching a couple episodes of it, like on YouTube or something, but it's not good. It's not good. Quite in contrast, though, is that 90s show. When they came out with that 90s show, people should be like, well, they should do that 80s show. And people are like, they did that. It sucked. But that 90s show follows the Eric and Donna's daughter, Leia, because of course it was, I forgot to mention, Eric is obsessed with Star Wars because towards the end of season 1, which takes place in 1977, Star Wars came out. So he becomes obsessed with it. And me as a dumbass, whenever I watched it growing up, I was like, why does it only mention the first one? Well, because the second one didn't come out until 1980? 81? I mean, 1980, I think, because in 1983 is when Return of the Jedi came out. So, yeah. So Empire Strikes Back didn't come out until after the 80s, apparently. After the 70s, excuse me. And, so yeah. But I think that 90s show works out great. However, trying to make things look like the 90s, like, there's a part where they go into the, like, a gas station, grocery store, whatever. They were so lazy because they use modern chips and stuff, modern logos, and it's like, why did you not? There's not a budget to go back and make it look like, because that's not what some of the stuff looked like back then. But you know, it has a good 90s feel, great cast, and I think it works. I may talk about it. I have to rewatch season 1, but I liked it. So, yeah, that 70s show is one of those shows I think stand the test of time. Maybe not with Danny Masterson, but I think his character's better than the character he was in Yes Man. But you know, I think the show works. What they were trying to do, and it's just like SpongeBob, where I don't consider it a 90s show, even though it premiered in 98. SpongeBob 99. I don't consider it a 90s show, but unlike SpongeBob, I can say definitively this is a 2000s show. Most of its run was in the 2000s, so I would say it's a 2000s show. Through and through. Even like the cinematography and look and feel, even though it's set in the 70s, it's got that filmed in the 2000s kind of feel. Basically, the late 90s, early 2000s were very similar anyway. But SpongeBob, I cannot say that's a 90s show or even a 2000s show. It's still on the air. It's still on the air, so I cannot say that it belongs to any decade in particular. It's just a long-running show, you know. But yeah, so that was that 70s show. What are your thoughts on that 70s show? Comment, like, share, and subscribe. And in my next ScottyTV video. Hopefully, I will be talking about another sitcom from the late 90s, early 2000s that went by, that aired on ABC, went by two different names, and was an early starring TV role for Ryan Reynolds. Until then, thanks for watching. I'm Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.